How y'all doing? For this book review, I'm going to cover a book on the paleontology side. It came out in late 2022. I read it in the summer of 2023, and just now, in January 2024, I'm trying to review it. It is The Desert Bones, the Paleontology and Paleoecology of Mid-Cretaceous North Africa. Why would anybody want to write a book on this one? Well, it's the environment that this Spinosaurus aegypticus existed in. And by the way, the author is Jamal Ejouhir. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. He's Arab descent. He's been educated in England. So if you know by any chance, you could put down a pronunciation key down below, so those I and others will find out in future. Okay, and a book like this is is published by Indiana Press, and for those of you who know those books, the format's pretty much the same. It starts off with the covers. First of all, let me tell you where it covers. This covers about 99, a time period in the North Africa Cretaceous between 99 million years ago to 93.5 million years ago. This is an epoch called the Cenomanian. This is the beginning of the later half of the Cretaceous. So, first of all, as for the format, the first part, he talks about the paleo environments and his stratigraphy. He talks about what the environments of the Cenomanian North Africa is like. Many of you already know that about the mangrove-style swamps, but it's more than just that. As you go further inland, further south, it gets to drier environments, so he covers on that. In fact, if anything, this time I didn't know about to start reading the book. He just got an illustration right this. This is North Africa. Got Morocco here, got Egypt over here. This part right here will be later the Mediterranean Sea, and right in between there is a seaway that goes all the way down through Africa into the southern half of the young Atlantic Ocean. So there's something to think about for a while. And the book is fully illustrated, both through drawn, fleshed out examples to photographs of the fossils, and because this is the current era, they're fully colored. Now he does in all the descriptions of the fleshed out ones, he does give the illustrator's name except for one. I'll get to that in the end. I wish he did tell this one, but I'm digressing a bit. Let's go over to after the discussion of the paleo environments of stratigraphy, where he discusses not only the environments but also what strata exist in what countries, and discusses which ones he looks into for the topic of discussion, and then he starts going through the fossils in a descriptive index of all that. Now there are some things like myospores and pollens and other things that are just long a long list of things that he doesn't give in to excessive details. He puts as another index in the back of the book. If you're interested in those, you could look at those species, and then you could use then you could look for further resources about that if you're interested in that. Outside of that, he gives a brief description of all that was found in there. So if he starts off with the flora, he goes over to plants such as these fossils, and this shows a lot of illustrations. Covers that quite well. And then of course he later goes to the invertebrates. Invertebrates is like your crustaceans, your insects, your shells, mollusk. One thing about it, I do love the illustrations that the fleshed out illustrations of the ammonites. I think they're unique as far as drawings go. They show vibrant colors. You see them. Usually you see the individual tentacles, but sort of, they had a sort of extra webbing between them, like on our fingers. Oh, this one's really nice. I like that one right here. Okay, so, and of course it's not, and he also goes further than that. Let's see, as far as the index, as I mentioned before, he talks about myospores and, let's see, pollen myospores, these are tiny little things that the average person may not be interested in. If you're into, if you're a paleontologist yourself, or an amateur or anything like that, you want that extensive knowledge, he does give it in the appendix in backs like this. So he talks about the pollen myospores. Another page he talks about the echinoids, and let's see, microfauna and meiofauna, bivalves, gastropods. That's just an extra list that would make the book too thick discussing details, and it may be too dry for the average one. But it does give these species names, so you can look it up further in that. But it does, goes on in details of other things, nautiloids. And then he gets into vertebrates. You got your sharks. You got, extensive amount of fish. Gaze about that. and gives a brief description of all that was found. And I mean, of course, with we go up this, you go from fish. Of course, you go to tetrapods. You go to think he goes to what little we discovered as far as marine reptiles, the Pterosaurs, and of course, because of the environment in the northern part of Africa at the time, crocodilian morphs, whole slew of those guys. But I think most people are probably more interested into the dinosaurs. He does go into the dinosaurs as this, and dinosaurs. Some of you are already familiar with many of the dinosaur species. Are Paraletitan, Deltadromeus, Bahariosaurus, Rugops, Egyptosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, and of course Spinosaurus. He gives whatever descriptions that he can to, without going extensive amount of details. And of course illustrations, both fossils and fleshed out illustrations on that. Does he talk about Spinosaurus? Of course he talks about Spinosaurus. It has probably, of all dinosaurs, has the most number of pages, because it's the one that most people are more curious about, especially over the course of the last 10 or so years, as we discovered more about Spinosaurus, since the original one was destroyed in World War II, discovered by Stromer during the Berlin bombing. For years, all we had is the extensive manuscript of what Stromer already found, and over the course of 10 years or so, publications have shown out that not only do we have brought out more about Spinosaurus, we are showing more and more what it accurately looks like. Of course, there's still debate about this, and the author is not, does talk about Ibrahim et al., who proposed the current look of Spinosaurus as a more quadrupedic swimmer. There are those who come out with like Paul Sereno. Those come out with publications that say, "Hey, it's not strictly as you taught this. It may because we have more accurate parts like the arms and all that. That changes its form and therefore center of mass and all that technical stuff. This stuff that's not strictly talks about this, but he does mention that they're bringing this stuff out. Jamal does." And he says, and the Ibrahim et al. Kind of hold back on strictly deals. It's a good example of how science goes back and forth with the debate to deduct and refine what is known and what they don't know, and why we and hopefully we get more accurate information. So now, after we talk about the just what's the list of all the dinosaurs that's there in the index and meta book, then he talks about the ecology, what it's like, and because you can't just simply have creatures living in it. You gotta see how they interact with it. So this let's see distribution of where certain things are. Let's see. You also got to deal with the food webs, how things interact, because this is ecology, and everything, where life interacts with environment interacts with life. So that's the things they try to study in that. Then you have the last chapter, March of the Oysters. And that's sort of proposed ideas on how these species got into North Africa, migrated there to begin with. How did the oysters got there? How certain fish got back there? Through related species we already know. And he talks about mass extinction in that particular part. It's not the KT extinction or the Permian, especially not the Permian. But there's a point where the Cenomanian ends and new species show up after a new epoch. So again, this is a good book like this is a great starting point for interested in Spinosaurus and the environment it lived in. You can start off here, and then you can use the resources after that to extend upon that, and with new research coming out. And particularly, also there was also research that shows up directly after this, right before this book showed up, and directly afterwards. So you can get started here. Then you can read more about the debate of Spinosaurus or other species in that time. Or, if you're a creative person, you could do what Ricardo de Galdo did. Not with this book, but with a book he did his own research. Ricardo de Galdo did the Age of Reptiles comics, published by Dark Horse Comics. This one I have in my hands called Ancient Egyptians. It is a comic that takes place in this environment. Main character is a Spinosaurus who comes in from the desert and into the swamps, and he's just there, doing his thing. Eventually finds a mate, tries to raise, some kids through that, but he's also kind of caught in and this is where it gets anthropomorphic, a confrontation between Carcharodontosaurs and I think Paraletitan or Egyptosaurs, I forget which ones, but It's a very good dinosaur comic. No text or not even sound effect roars or anything. It's a great use of visual storytelling. So, basically, it's Ricardo de Galdo taking the Cenomanian period of North Africa, and he integrated a rough story of Akira Kurosawa's Jimbo in that. So, and he says that particularly. So yeah, check out the Age of Reptile comics. This is Age Egyptians, and you get the other story arcs through a nice little trade through there through Dark Horse. And again, this is a good example of what you could do with this. Now, as I said, Ricardo de Galdo did not use this book as reference. This came out a few years before, but he had to do his own research to to find out what's that. But here, if you want to cut to the chase, you can start off here and branch out through that through whatever creative or a scientific study you want to learn into. Now, going back to the illustrations where it shows where I mentioned that he usually tells the artist at the description, except for one, and it's this last overleaf, and it is this. It's a Spinosaurus looking at the sunset, and it says, "These are the closing days of my era." And if you think that is a quote from Elder Scrolls, you're right. That's where he got it. All right, so that is the book, The Desert Bones, The Paleontology and Paleoecology of Mid-Cretaceous North Africa by Jamal Ijohir. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.